Attorneys for an Austin police officer want to move his trial out of Travis County. The KVUE Defenders obtained a change of venue motion filed in the case against Officer Christopher Taylor.
Officer Taylor's facing a murder charge for the 2020 shooting death of Michael Ramos. It happened in southeast Austin. An attempt to start Taylor's trial back in May, you may remember, ended in a mistrial. KVUE senior reporter Tony Plohetski joins us here in the studio to talk more about today's motion and this case in general. Tony, some legal weight behind today's request.
So when you look at the motion, and by the way, motions like this are not entirely uncommon, especially in a high-profile case. But what jumped out in this particular motion were some of the names associated. And what I mean by that is that attorneys for Christopher Taylor sought affidavits from a number of people in the legal community to essentially attest that they do not believe that Christopher Taylor could get a fair trial here in Austin. So when we talk about some of the names attached to those affidavits, we're talking about Margaret Moore, who was the Travis County District Attorney before the current District Attorney, Jose Garza. It's important to note that her administration actually did the initial investigation into this shooting. She was still in office at that time. Charlie Baird, who was also well known in Austin's legal community. He was a defense attorney. He currently is a defense attorney, I should say. He was also a state district judge for a number of years and also served on the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, the highest criminal court in the state of Texas. And in addition to that, there are a number of defense attorneys, high-profile defense attorneys, who similarly signed affidavits saying that they do not believe that Christopher Taylor could get a fair trial and that the trial should be moved outside of Travis County.
Now, Tony, of course, this change of venue motion isn't really a big surprise. A lot of legal experts saw this coming after all the issues we saw with the first attempt at seating a jury in Taylor's trial back in the spring.
That's right. And attorneys for Christopher Taylor actually had said publicly that they plan to bring this change of venue motion. It is striking, though, that they are using some of what happened during that effort to seat a jury in May as part of their justification, their rationale for bringing this motion. According to this motion, and again, it's 319 pages, but they point out that it was difficult to seat a jury in May when this case was supposed to go to trial. In fact, that difficulty in seating a jury resulted in a mistrial. The judge said, forget it, we'll start all over on another day. It's important to keep in mind that, yes, it is true, some of those potential jurors, those prospective jurors, did cite their inability to be unbiased in this case. They knew about this case, and they said, we don't exactly think we can be fair and impartial jurors. Of course, the hallmark for being a juror. In addition to that, it is important to note that an entire panel of prospective jurors were dismissed because the courtroom, it was discovered, was locked on the first day of jury deliberation, or excuse me, not jury deliberation, jury selection. And so they had to be dismissed, and that led to a number of prospective jurors being turned away.
So let's say the judge decides to agree to move the trial. How does that all work?
Well, I want to say it's highly unusual. So the mechanics are not very well polished here in Travis County in terms of how it would work. But generally, this is what happens. If the judge says, yes, I agree with the defense, this cannot happen in Travis County, it would not be fair and impartial for Christopher Taylor. In that instance, someone who is called an administrative regional judge, so someone who has some administrative authority over this whole judicial region, would then get on the phone and call neighboring counties or other counties in our judicial district and say, hey, do you have a courtroom available on this date? And if that is the case, then the trial likely would be moved to that county, to that courtroom. But what's so important about this, if it were to occur, is that, again, the jurors would then come from the county where the trial is moved.
And let's be honest, the counties around Travis County, mainly conservative population. So the attorneys for the officer here, no doubt, know this, right?
They absolutely know it. And in their motion, one of the things they point out for a reason that they believe this trial should be moved is pretrial publicity. And of course, we have extensively covered this case for 2.5 years now, well, 3 years. Happened in April 2020. But one of the things they note is that if this trial were to be moved, the only 2 counties in this judicial region that are not part of the Austin media market are Comal County and San Saba County. So in their motion, they mention those 2 counties as potential places where this trial, in their opinion, should be moved.
Interesting.
Well, Tony, even if Taylor's trial is moved to one of these other counties, he may still have to face a Travis County jury anyway in a separate case.
That is one point that is not often discussed when we talk about Christopher Taylor, and that is he is charged not only with murder in the death of Michael Ramos, but he also faces another murder charge for a 2019 on-duty shooting that happened in downtown Austin. Murder charges were brought against him by a grand jury in that case as well. But in terms of the 2 cases that, 2 charges that Christopher Taylor faces, prosecutors elected to try this case, the Michael Ramos case, first.
All right, and Tony, something that actually stood out to me in all of this, in the initial 911 call, it was said that there was a woman in the car with Ramos. We've never heard anything about this woman. We've never heard from this woman. Will we potentially hear from her or hear anything about her?
I think it's probable, if not likely, because she called 911 to report possible drug use inside a car. It was her phone call that prompted police to respond to that apartment complex in Southeast Austin. One of the things that she also said is that there was an armed person in that car, potentially holding a gun to someone else in that car. And so police raced to that scene. It's important to note that after the shooting of Michael Ramos, police never recovered a gun. And so there was a lot of interest in why she made this report to police, what she understood may have been happening. But again, all of that is going to likely, if not certainly, come out at trial because it sets up what police knew as they converged on that scene, what was in their mind, and how it framed their response that day.
Back to the news you broke today about this change of venue motion. The counties you mentioned, San Saba, Comal County, 2 things. They have a say in this, I would assume, whether or not they want this trial there. If they don't want it there, or they don't have the dates available, what happens then if the judge decides, okay, there's been too much publicity, we can't get a fair trial here, we want to move it, those 2 counties are out, then what happens?
The administrative judge would then try to find another place for this trial to happen. But again, I just want to point out the highly unusual nature of this. Of course, I've been asking all of these questions too. If this happens, then that happens. But the last time, from people I talked to who are veterans of the Travis County criminal court system, the last time they know of this actually occurring, where a trial was in fact moved to another county, was in the early to mid 1990s. So this is extraordinarily rare, and because of that, many of the logistics, like the ones you're asking about, like the ones I've been asking about, are kind of unknown at this point. They would have to figure out a lot of this as they move forward. There's no immediate template.
A lot to unpack and still a lot of decisions to be made, and we really don't have a time frame on when this could all be decided, do we?
There is no time frame. Keep in mind, this case, as it stands right now, is set for trial in October here in Travis County. Whether or not that gets pushed or moved while all of this gets litigated is, of course, a big question.
All right, it just continues to develop.
And we will continue watching it as well.
All right, thank you, senior reporter Tony Plohetski.